Hello and welcome to Blueprints Behind Business interview series. I'm your host, Brad Douglas, and today I'm joined by Jake Butler with JB and Associates. Jake, you want to kick us off?
Brad, how you doing today? Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the interview series. Looking forward to hearing a lot more about you and your business. You want to share with everyone a little bit about yourself and JB and Associates?
Well, I want to hear about myself also. I need to interview somebody that could tell me about myself and my company. But no, I started as a school teacher, became unhappy with my salary. So my dad was in real estate. We used to have a bet back in the day where every time I scored 33 points or more, he would owe me a Nintendo game. I'm like, Dad, you
Uh,
behind on your Nintendo game that you owe me. But he would be buying properties, fixing them up and reselling them. I saw him, counting a lot of money. Well, 20, 30,000 in the 80s when I would come home from school. So when I became a school teacher and I wasn't making much money, I started thinking about how he, was making money when I was growing up because unfortunately he had passed. And I was like, Dad was making money in real estate. And then I remembered the things from working at his mortgage company. And I remember riding around in his truck looking at properties. I remember him on the phone with the appraiser. And then I remember him fixing them up a little bit and reselling them and making like 20, 30,000 and not really paying attention to how he did it. Um, and I just remembered those things. I'm like, so I started thinking about how he did it and what he did and what he liked and what he didn't like. And then I started going to real estate investment clubs in the evening when I got out of school. I mean, when I got out of from teaching, and I started wholesaling. Is how I started because that was kind of the easiest barrier to entry that I felt at the time. The mistake was I should have been wholesaling commercial real estate, not residential real estate.
okay.
So 3 years later, I found out, oh, I should be wholesaling commercial. So then I started wholesaling commercial. The checks were a lot larger. And then I
Mhm.
started buying commercial. And now I own an apartment building. I still have some houses that I brought back in the day. Um, and then I've raised capital by a large commercial distress property.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So
Exciting
that was
background.
my course.
Say it again.
I said that was my course.
That was your I gotcha. So that gives us some good background on how you got started and why you kind of took those steps and taking that entrepreneurial leap. What now that you've been doing this for a while and transition from teaching, are there any kind of misconceptions or anything about running a business that you could offer to anyone and how you potentially address those?
I would say you have to be passionate about what you do. Everybody says if you're passionate, the money will come. But you have to solve a problem. You have to solve a specific problem. I remember when I actually the first property that I brought, um, the lady was in foreclosure. And then I knew a guy, a multimillionaire. I asked him if he would, either loan me money or help me out. I was just getting into real estate, so I didn't know a whole lot about it. He was like, well, I don't really like what you're doing. We're looking at foreclosures. You really shouldn't be buying people's houses. So if somebody that's a millionaire tells you that, you like, and they own a bunch of different large properties, you start thinking about, oh, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? But they weren't willing to show me, how they brought these big buildings. And so I learned from people that I had access to. So that's what I did. That's where I started. And then come to find out, there's nothing wrong with that because I helped a lot of people in foreclosure that would have lost their house. You don't
Mhm.
always have to buy properties pennies on a dollar to make money. And then as I became more knowledgeable, people will hire me as a consultant to help them solve their problem.
Mm.
So in some cases, the bank was going to take it regardless, and they had to sell. So if they
Yeah,
have to
right.
sell and I'm there, then they might as well sell it to me. If somebody's going to benefit. So I ended up making money there. That's how I was able to quit being a school teacher, that and wholesaling property. So I would say you gotta, learn whatever you have access to. If there's a fruit in a tree and it's really high, you can't reach it, then you're going to starve if you don't eat. So you gotta kind of, start with what you have access to and start growing from there.
Fantastic.
That's what
It's great that you didn't let that deter you from continuing to take those steps and get going there. So
Yeah, man, it was funny because the lady, she was so happy, and then I said, man, had I not studied foreclosure, had I not read books about it, had I not, went to a class, I wouldn't have been able to help that person.
all right.
But you can help people on a larger scale to make, a larger sum of money. A brain surgeon is still a doctor, but it's not an ER doctor. So, but he's still a doctor. So there's different things you can do in the industry to make more money depending on what niche you select.
That's some great advice.
Hmm.
So, can you share any kind of valuable lesson or piece of advice you wish you would have known before you started? I mean, you gave a bunch right there already, but
Oh, you think
anything
so?
else on starting your own business, you know?
Well, starting my own business, I wasn't comfortable jumping out starting my own business unless I had 1 year of salary in the bank.
Mm,
So it took me 2 years. You can do it faster now, but it took me 2 years to put together 100,000. Um, my salary when I was teaching was like 35,000 at that time. So I was like, well, if I can take 50,000 and live off of it, and then take the other 50,000 and invest it, then that gives me enough for a whole year. I don't have to worry about, trying a business for 3, 4 months and then having to run back and get a job. So I stayed on my job until I knew that I could, line up my health insurance, line up everything that I needed to. And then I opened up my company and then I hired myself. And then the payroll company will give me a check every 2 weeks, just if I was, working when I was a school teacher, getting a check every 2 weeks. Except for now, the checks will come from my company. So that's what I did.
oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I know there's been a lot of people that get into this. There's, some very big competitive type situations that you might
Hmm.
run into with
Hmm.
investors, things like that. How do you stay adaptable and open to change and potentially that competition? Is there any kind of specific strategies that you use to stay innovative?
I would say be yourself. I know when I was looking at single family houses, a lot of times you would see investors at the property looking at the same property that you're looking at, or right behind you. The next day the homeowner might be calling somebody else.
Hmm.
But what I attempted to do was, understand the problem because you can't solve all problems in the world. So understand the person's problem or your client's problem, and if you can't help them, you can't help them. You just have to, you can't make that money. But what happens is they may refer you to somebody else. So that something that didn't turn out to make you money might turn into something because they told somebody else about you. But understand their problem and then see if your skill set can solve it. If your skill set can solve it or advance it where you can at least solve some of the problem, then that's what you want to try to do. But you got to listen to them first, be empathetic, and then see how you can help them. Not necessarily how you can make a profit, but how you can help them. And by helping them, if you can make a profit, then that's what you should
Oh, it's great.
do. Yeah.
So, can you offer a glimpse into maybe some future strategies that you have without giving too much away, and where you think your entrepreneurial journey will take you next?
Um. Well, what I tell people, because I have a monthly real estate class, I mean a weekly real estate class, and then what happened was once I quit being a school teacher, people kept asking me how do you do it? They would see me in the grocery store. Oh, Mr. Butler used to teach my daughter, used to teach my son. So that what you doing now? So people kept asking me, and then they would tie me up because I'm the type person that tries to help people, try to help people out. They would tie me up on the phone for like 2, 3 hours. Like, how'd you do this? How'd you do this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How'd you buy that property? But then they wouldn't do anything after the conversation. So I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to help people. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna write a course, and then people that's serious, they can buy my course, and then I'll help them because the conversations become a different type of conversation once you've read a couple chapters, and now you're asking me questions about what you read versus if you're asking me questions about just out the blue about what you think or what you saw on YouTube or something like that. So to answer your question, I created three or four different areas of different price points, like from 100 to 43,000 in a mentorship program. $100, 3,000, 10,000, 43,000. So someone that's serious, they can fit in somewhere because
Right.
sometimes you get people that want to start learning, they want to start, but one, they don't know who to trust, and two, they don't have the money for, Grant Cardone's program that I paid for mentoring was $25,000. So some people don't have that amount, but I tried to give a range where you can start somewhere for people that are serious about starting to learn how to invest in real estate. And
Sure.
you can start investing with as little as $500.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you can start with as low as 500 with tax certificates. Tax certificates give you up to 18% on your money, and you don't have to own the property. So some people, that are scared about investing, but they do like real estate, you can start with $500, and while that money's out there, you can keep learning. You
Hmm.
know. Or, if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, you can buy properties with passive income and start to generate wealth that way as well.
Well, it's great you're still keeping that teaching background.
Oh, you think
Great
so?
fit for you, right? Just
That's
teaching
what
in a
people
different
do.
way.
Yeah, that's what I told some teachers that were in my program. I said, look, you can get into real estate and it's not real estate, but you can start your own business and still teach. Because now with my nonprofit, instead of teaching kids in the classroom, I got 50 to 300 kids that I teach online from my Rich Kid Camp Online program, teaching them how to start investing. So if people that have a passion for doing whatever it is they like, but it doesn't make a lot of money, you can still do that and do
Mhm.
something else, or you can transition completely and still come back to what you like.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap it up here a little bit, you know, final question for you: what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs just starting their journey? You've given a lot of great nuggets of information here and thoughts and advice, but what's one of the final pieces that you would offer up?
That's funny because NBC asked me that same question last week. They said, "What would you tell?" So, okay, so I'm gonna give you two pieces. So for teenagers and an adult. So on a teenager youth side, I would tell them to find a mentor, but you really don't know what you want to do sometimes when you're a teenager. But the different things you think you want to do, write them all down and try to get experience in those areas. When I first got to college, I thought I wanted to be a sports agent, so I got a job with a sports agent. I thought I
Yeah.
maybe wanted to be a coach, so I took one summer and just did basketball camps and just did coaching. Another summer, I worked with the Olympics and logistics. So things I thought I wanted to do, I went ahead and got experience in those areas. You don't get a whole full year. Well, you can get a full year if you work part time there, but for a good 3 to 4 months, if you get saturated in what you think you want to do, then you have a better idea if you want to do it. Because before I went to college, I would speak to a lot of different adults and say, "Hey, what did you do when you got out of college?" Almost every adult told me, "I spent so much time doing this. I wish I would have never spent 5 years on this job and then I transitioned." So I didn't want to go 4 years of college, then take 4 years doing a job I didn't want to do, then take another 4 years, go to another job you don't want to do. So I said, if I can get experience in some of these areas while I have 4 years of college, then I can narrow down, so that's what I did. So on the youth side, the teenager side, young adult side, I would say write down things you want to do and try to get experience in that area while you're learning about money and finances because rent, mortgage, money is always going to be a part of your life.
Hmm.
In some schools, it's part of the curriculum, but they don't really teach you how to invest.
Yeah.
But they give you teach you about credit, teach you about some different basic things, but they don't teach you how to grow your money. You got to make, save, and then grow. So I would tell young kids that. On the adult side, it's a little bit more, it's a lot different because now we have so much responsibility once we
Hmm.
become adults. So it's like, man, how do I get out of the rat race, man? You keep going further and further into the rat race each year. So you got to create a household budget. I go over my budget every 3, 4 months, check my accounts probably 2, 3 times a day. But you have to know what your bottom nut is to make all of your expenses. Then, once you know what your bottom line is for your household budget, just what you need every month, maybe your job covers it, maybe it doesn't. Then, in real estate, I'm going to talk about what I know about. In real estate, you can then set up a plan as to how many properties you need to buy, or in commercial, it could be just one property. In residential, it'll be multiple. It doesn't have to be in that sector. It could be in the mortgage sector because you can buy notes, you can sell notes. There are different ways you can make money, but how can you make that bottom line number that you need passively without having to get up and work 9 to 5? So, and there are multiple ways you can do that. That's a whole different podcast, but that's what you will want to, look at. And if you don't like real estate, that's fine. There are a bunch of other ways where you can try to make that bottom line number. It might be through a business you want to start, but at least you know what your freedom number is, what I call it, your freedom number.
That's great. I'm sure everyone out there listening is learning more and more and
They like,
will get
Jake,
a
tell
better
me more.
start on their entrepreneurial journey. And if they need some help, they know who to go to.
Hey, Brad, where'd you get this guy from? Where'd you get this guy from? So
No, it's
no,
fantastic.
that's what I would say.
Well, Jake, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Like I said, I'm sure everyone watching these episodes is going to enjoy the conversation. To everyone watching, looking forward to seeing the next episode. Thanks and see you soon.
I appreciate it.